On January 21st, the Sunday Times put out an article titled, "Is Greenland really in danger of being overrun by Russia and China?" One of the publication's sources, who is connected to the military, said that during the NATO annual winter exercises, Joint Viking, American troops encountered difficulties, and organizers of the exercise were forced to ask Finnish reservists to take it easy on the Americans. The story went viral across social media, likely feeding the fire of ongoing anti-American sentiment, most recently sparked by US President Donald Trump's desire to turn Greenland into US territory. So, what were the details of the original report, and why has Finland been forced to deny the claims? Let's take a look in today's video. So the original article by the Sunday Times discusses the Greenland situation and the United States' desire to take the territory, as President Trump had claimed that it was at risk of being overrun by Russia and China. But the article discussed the fact that the US Army has limited capabilities for operations in the Arctic, and that the US military as a whole lags behind Scandinavian countries and the UK in terms of training for operations in cold climates. Supporting this claim was what was said to have taken place during Exercise Joint Viking 2025, an exercise that focuses on cold weather training and military-to-military engagement in the Arctic. During the exercise, held in Norway, more than 10,000 soldiers from 9 countries participated: Norway, Finland, the UK, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Canada, and the United States. From the United States specifically were troops from the 2nd Marine Division and 2nd Marine Logistics Group, and soldiers from the Army's 1st Battalion, 6th Field Artillery Regiment, 41st Field Artillery Brigade. The main activity took place in Troms County in northern Norway. The Norwegian Armed Forces adds that there was also some activity in the air and at sea, including the Tarva firing range outside Ørland. So what happened to these American service members? Here's what the Times had to say in its original report. Most telling is that the US has little in the way of suitable military resources or experience for the Arctic. It is, for once, European NATO allies, especially the Scandinavians and Britain, who have Arctic-ready forces. One military source noted that in last year's Joint Viking exercise in northern Norway, American troops struggled. Exercise commanders had to ask Finnish reservists, the most formidable Arctic warriors, who were playing the role of invaders in the war games, to go easy on the Americans. The Finns had to be told to stop beating the Americans as it was embarrassing and demoralizing for them, a military source said. That's really all the detail that was given, which makes sense when you're discussing military exercises and force preparedness, as it is almost a violation of operational security. Nonetheless, it's this part of the article that was quoted across social media and made the most waves. There's the natural national pride of seeing one force perform better than another. However, the virality of the story and public reaction was likely more than just cheering for Finland. Indeed, with the current posture of the United States, well, mainly the position taken by President Trump and his advisors, there has been a growing divide between the country and its European allies, not to mention Canada. With Trump's previous reluctance to rule out taking Greenland by force, many were perhaps a little pleased to hear that the large and mighty US forces were being embarrassed by Finnish reservists. To try and get to the fact of the matter, the military news site The War Zone asked for confirmation from Finland's Jaeger Brigade, who in turn, quote, unequivocally denied going soft on US troops. A unit spokesperson told The War Zone, "We do not recognize the type of situation having occurred as was described in the Times, according to which Finnish troops would have been asked to lower the pressure in the exercise." In fact, it was stated that the Jaeger Brigade wasn't even conducting opposition force activities during the exercise, and were in fact Finland's only participant in Joint Viking 2025. The unit went on to say, the Finnish force operated in the exercise with the US force on the same side. So kudos to the War Zone for fact-checking the original story. We did a little digging of our own and realized that there is Exercise Arctic Forge 2025, which took place in the Sodankylä training area of Finland in late February of that year. During this exercise, we did see force-on-force training. In fact, Americans were the blue force, while Finnish soldiers took on the role of the enemy. So maybe, just maybe, the demoralizing embarrassment of the Americans at the hands of the Finns took place not at Joint Viking, but at Arctic Forge. At the same time, we're sure that almost everyone who saw that commonly reposted part of the Times article thought to themselves, that sounds about right. And such a reaction would not have come from immediately thinking US forces were inferior, but rather that Nordic troops such as the Finns are simply highly skilled and well-trained in cold weather operations. The war zone adds that the US Army has acknowledged the difficulty of operating in the high north, where the Finns and Norwegians call home. The website points out that during the Association of the US Army Conference in 2023, senior Army officers and civilians gave a blunt assessment of the difficulties the service faces operating in the Arctic. It was highlighted that operating in extremely cold temperatures means units face unique equipment-related and logistical problems, ranging from satellite communications to simply keeping batteries charged. Additionally, operational tasks such as setting up artillery positions, administering basic first aid, and simple relocation are much harder than they would be in more temperate climates. So perhaps all of this is making a mountain out of a molehill, because it's perhaps unsurprising that US forces weren't as skilled at handling the extreme cold as well as their Nordic and Scandinavian allies. And that's what training in these exercises are all about, to discover areas of improvement and gaps in training that remain. But the fact remains that Finnish forces refute the claims of the source as reported by the Times, especially since the claim of Finnish reservists playing the role of OPFOR was said to be inaccurate. So there is still a bit of mystery as to how and why the military source's information doesn't line up with what was stated to be reality by the Jaeger Brigade. Was there some confusion about the specific exercise? Was it a different year? Maybe it's just now one big cover-up and the Jaeger Brigade is trying to remain on good terms with the Americans. Well, it's probably not the last one. But what do you make of all this? Do let us know by leaving a comment down below.